my philosophy of leadership is not about people who sit at the top. My philosophy of leadership is about these people. The people at all places within the organization who are willing to lock arms and see an opportunity, notice an opportunity before them, and then collaborate to create a positive transformation or a positive change in the organization because they care that much about it. That's what leadership is. Leadership isn't a title. It's not a position. It's not a chip. It's not a part of the DNA that you're born with. It's not a training program that someone could give you and impose upon you. Leadership, in my mind, it's ultimately a collection of talented people who come together in the spirit of affecting a positive change. You are up against an incredible change. Who do you need to lock arms with? Who has diverse talents and gifts that could benefit you and your team to see the world before you more clearly? This is Gary Kelly. Started as the CFO of Southwest Airlines. He's now the chairman and the CEO and the president of the company. And what's interesting about Gary is Gary carries on the tradition. Herb Kelleher was famous for saying, you know, at Southwest Airlines, what's interesting is every other airline could replicate our operating strategy. Every other airline can fly 737s because those planes are available. Every other airline can stop serving meals, and guess what many of them have? Every other airline could replicate our seating strategy. He said, but what's amazing is in the 40-plus years that we've been doing business, no other airline has figured out how to replicate the most valuable thing we have, and that's the spirit of our people. It's the spirit of our people that you can't replicate. And recently, Gary Kelly said something very similar. He said, yeah, we transport people from point A to point B. That's what, WHT, that's what we do. Anybody can replicate that. He said, but how we do it and who does it, the how and the who is our secret sauce. It's about the people of this airline. That is what makes us unique. That is what makes us special. And they've created a culture where people are inspired. They are challenged to constantly not lead up here, not lead over there in an individual initiative, but they're challenged to collaborate. And Gary Kelly was one of the guys that was put to the test back in 1997 as the CFO of the company. Tonda Montague, the director of employee communications, realized that there was a problem within the organization. And what she realized is she said, everybody who wants to come to work here, they're always told, if you want to come to work for this company, we need you to know you're never going to have all the resources you think you need to get the job done. You just won't have them all. So if you're up for the challenge of working here, that means you got to find a way always to drive costs out of this company. But when you're driving costs out, you can never compromise safety, you can't compromise security, you can't compromise service, and you certainly can't compromise schedule. So if you're still up for that challenge, then by all means, you're welcome in. She said, you know, we've challenged people for years around that. She said, but I don't think people fully understand where all the costs are coming from. I don't think people understand where the income is coming from. He says, well, we have a really sophisticated P&L that's available for everybody. And she said, yeah, but everybody doesn't know how to read that. And he said, really? And she said, I don't think they do. And she said, I think what we should do is we should create a P&L that everybody in the organization can understand. I'm talking with definitions and with big icons. And he said, no way, that'll compromise the integrity of that document and it'll insult our people. And she said, I don't think so. She said, you have to trust me on this. So we've got a guy that thinks in numbers, and we've got a woman who thinks in big, visionary pictures and, you know, employee communication. She thinks in words. And they butt heads for a little bit. And then ultimately what happened is they decided to collaborate, and they created the first ever P&L that everybody in the organization could understand. A profit and loss formula where they spelled everything out, and they had pictures, and it became an interesting document for everybody to read. So how does it play out? Well, it causes collaboration to happen in all kinds of different pockets. And it causes people to get comfortable talking about what was once uncomfortable. And it causes people to notice the opportunities that are right there before them. So maybe you've got a brand new first officer who's flying with a very seasoned captain in the cockpit of an airplane. And the first officer has a little bit of time in the break room and he's playing around or looking at this. And he gets in the second seat in the cockpit and he says to the captain, you know, I was looking at this, P&L and I'm realizing fuel costs, there's nothing we can do in here. In the cockpit of this airplane, in what we have control of, how in the world can we influence these numbers when fuel costs are pretty much there? And the captain says, well, you didn't know. Well, let me tell you. If you request a different altitude and a different vector, you can actually save Southwest Airlines $7 on this flight. And of course, the first officer says, $7? We're a $17 billion company. What is $7? And then the captain goes on to say, well, we fly 3,300 flights a day. We don't take a day off. We fly 365 days a year. The cost savings is huge. It makes a difference. It creates conversation. It creates comfort where it once might have been uncomfortable.